Okay, class, in this video I'm just going to go over a little bit more about sites and services and configure DC3 and DC4 to be domain controllers for their parent domain, Contoso.com. The reason why I had a very short video on the last video was because I wanted to give it time so the things we've done in sites and services is replicated to all domains. So if I go to parent DC2, I can see that sites and services are is replicated that data. If I go to the child DC5, I can see that it also has that data, and tree DC6, it also has that data. So now all my data has been fully replicated between all DCs on all domains. The other thing I wanted to point out is when you configure sites and services, it doesn't matter which domain you do it from, because you're not configuring any one domain, you're configuring the entire forest. Now, if I look at this site over here, I can see this one site contains 1, 2, 3 domains. And I can see that this site contains one domain. I also can see that I have my Contoso.com is spanning 2 different sites. So I can have one site with multiple domains, or I can have one domain spanning multiple sites. And I want you to try to think of the sites as just another container. Just like we think of a domain control as another container, the site container allows us to control replication between objects. So it's just a container that's going to hold domain controllers, and we're going to dictate who can deal with those domain controllers. Now, there's another thing that I have to do with sites and services I haven't done yet because I don't have any DCs in this site yet. So our next stage is to create some domain controllers in the other site, verify that they go into the proper site, and then configure the next step for sites and services. I didn't want to go on until I was fully replicated. So if you watch the other video, don't jump into this video really quickly until you know that sites and services is on all domains and all domain controllers. The other thing I want to do is look at DNS again and just test that. I'm going to open up a command prompt. I'm actually going to open up a command prompt, not a PowerShell. I'm going to change my resolution. And I'm going to use NSLOOKUP as a utility, not a command. So if I type NSLOOKUP alone, I can see I go inside NSLOOKUP. I want to test these records. I want to test that I can get to resolve who a global catalog server is for the West site. So it's going to be, and I'll type it so you can see it. So normally we've dealt with pointer records, and we've dealt with A records, we've dealt with some other different type of records, but right now we're dealing with a service record. So I'm going to say set type equal SRV. So when I query, I don't query for an A record, I want to query for a service record. So I want to find out who the global catalog server is for the site that I'm on. It automatically knows what site I'm in based on my IP address of this machine. So I'm going to do _ gc dot _ tcp dot west dot _ sites dot contoso.com, and it's going to come back with the DC that's my global catalog server. So it would be this inside of that folder, inside of that folder, inside of that folder, inside of that folder. So underscore gc dot underscore tcp dot west dot underscore sites dot contoso.com. So I can see that DNS is functioning properly. If a client needs to find out who the global catalog server is, then the client won't have any problem. If the client needs to find out who the LDAP server is, which is a domain controller, it should be able to find out who the LDAP server is. In this particular case, I have two machines that are LDAP servers. I only have one global catalog, but I have two machines. Not only does it give me, it has something called priority and wait. So basically you can change data in these records to make one DC more preferred over another DC. It also indicates what port this service runs on, which is port 389 TCP. We might have some UDP stuff and it'll have those port numbers there, but LDAP, Lightweight Directory Access Protocol, this is our Active Directory database, listens on port 389 TCP. The name of it is parent-dc1.contoso.com, and the IP address is here at the bottom. So we can query for a service, get the name, the port number, the protocol, and the IP address all through DNS. So I'm going to exit out of here. I just wanted to kind of give you an idea of how sites works with DNS. It's really important that you understand that. I'm going to go look at the child DC. So I'm going to go into DNS for the child domain. And again, I have that site folder. All that data got replicated over. So who will I point to for LDAP? Child DC5. Who would I point to for Kerberos? Kerberos is the tickets used for authentication. When I sign into a server, I don't actually sign into the server. I talk to the domain controller, the Kerberos server. I get a ticket for the server that I want to talk to. Then I present that ticket to the server that I want to talk to, whether it be a file server or any other service in my network. So we use Kerberos tickets. So DNS is functioning properly. So now I'm going to look at my IP settings. So the IP address for DC3 will be 172.16.8.2/21. So I'm going to go to DC3. I'm going to go into IP settings. The gateway for this subnet is 16.8.1. That's the gateway for people in this subnet, or machines in this subnet. And for DNS, who knows about contoso.com? Right now, the two DNS servers that are hosting the namespace contoso.com are 0.3 and 0.2. I'm going to hit yes to relax my firewall. And now I'm going to rename my computer. parent-DC3 and reboot. I'm going to sign back in and install Active Directory. I'm just going to verify I can resolve the name. I'm going to pause the video and try to solve this issue. I don't have connectivity between my sites. Okay, I'm going to pause the video. Actually, I'm not going to pause the video, so you can see how I'm diagnosing this. So basically, I'm going to NAT1 and NAT2. I've signed in so far. I'm going to open up the firewall to allow ping. Inbound and outbound. I'm going to do this on NAT1 first, and then do it for NAT2 as well. Okay, so I have ping opened up. So I'm going to go back to DC3. I'm going to make this full screen. So ping 172.16.8.2. Can I ping myself? Yes, I can ping myself. Now I'm going to ping the router. 8.1. This is, I'm going to ping from here to here. Now I'm going to ping from here to this other interface on my router. I'm going to ping 16.2. So I can ping from here to here and from here to here. So now I'm going to do it on the other side, from here to 16.1. And I can ping all the way across. Now I'm going to go from here to here, 0.1. So I can ping there. So now I'm going to try to ping from here to DC1. It's failing there. So I'm going to go look at DC1 and see if there's a problem with the IP settings. I don't see a problem. So I'm going to try to ping in reverse. So I'm going to ping myself, 172.16.0.2. I can ping myself. Now I'm going to ping the near side of NAT 1. I can ping. Now I'm going to ping the far side of NAT 1, 16.1. So my packets can get to DC 1 from DC 3, but they're not getting returned. So I've got to look and see why. I can see why. DC 1 has this weird route there. I don't know why. So I'm going to do route print. Every once in a while, you get some weird route stuck in memory. So I want to remove this route. Route delete 0.0.0.0 /0. Sorry, mask 0.0.0.0. So I want to delete any route with that network address and that subnet mask. Sorry, I'm thinking one Linux right now. I have to spell out the word. I can't use an abbreviation. So I'm going to look at my routing table again. So now I don't have any gateway. So I wipe them both out. I'm going to go back to the server manager and add my gateway back. Every once in a while, guys, you get this weird thing where a route gets stuck in memory and you just have to manually remove it. .172.16.0.1. I'm going to look at my routing table again, route print. I only have one default gateway. The last time I had two default gateway, it just confused the machine. It couldn't get out. So now I'm going to go back to my pinging. I'm going to try to ping the far side of NAT 1. Now I can ping it. Now I'm going to ping the near side of NAT 2. I can ping it. The far side of NAT 2. Now I'm going to ping DC 3. Still can't ping. So I'm going to go look at DC 3 again. I'm sorry, I can't ping DC 3. The issue is DC 3 has a firewall. So I'm going to relax my firewall in DC 3 just to test. I just want to go over some OSI tips. I was pretty sure that my wiring was right. My layer 1 stuff was fine. I had my network wired properly, so I knew it wasn't a layer 1 problem. By pinging myself and pinging the near side of the router, that's in the same network. That's layer 2. So I wasn't having a layer 2 problem. When I was pinging outside of my network, that's when the problem showed up. So I knew it was a layer 3 problem. Go over the OSI model. It helps you diagnose network issues. So I relaxed my firewall in DC3. I'm going to try to ping DC3 again. Now I can ping. So the issue that I had was I had a weird default route on DC1 that I removed using the route command. So now I'm going to go back to DC3. Give me 1 second. Someone's walking in my door and the dog goes crazy. Okay, so now I'm back on DC3. I'm going to see if I can resolve contoso.com. NS lookup, contoso.com. So I have no problem getting to the other DC on the other site. I'm going to do NS lookup, google.com. I can resolve Google. Guys, you see this little message saying there's no internet access? I have internet access. So I don't know what's up with that message. So don't worry about it if you have that message. I'm going to ping Google. So I have full connectivity to the internet. This says I don't. Don't worry about it. I'm going to pause the video.
Sorry, I'm not sure.
Okay, now I'm going to promote this to a domain controller. It's going to be an additional domain controller in an existing domain. The domain name is contoso.com. I'm going to supply my domain admin credentials for that domain. I don't have a global catalog server on this East site yet, so this will be my one global catalog server for the East site. Now look at this. It automatically determined that this machine should be in the East site. I like to set up the sites before I create any DCs on the remote site. So when I promote it, it's automatically in the right site. If you create all your DCs first and then configure sites and services, you're going to have to go into sites and services and move the domain controllers around. I'll show you that in a moment once it starts promoting. The delegation issue, don't worry about it. I'm not creating any zone. It's already created for me on DC 1 and 2. I'm just going to copy it over to this machine. If this was a very big Active Directory domain, because I'm on a remote site, I might want to take a backup from DC 1 or 2 and copy all the data from the backup, and then once the DC is up and running, I'll replicate any changes since the backup. My database folder, my log file, my transaction log file, and my sysfile folder location. Let's check the prereqs. Everything is good. I'm pressing install. It's not going to take very long because I'm not creating the domain. I'm just going to copy it over from DC1. Now, keep in mind, guys, when you make something in the west site, there's going to be a 15-minute delay before it comes to the east site, and vice versa. So I'm going to go back to DC1. I'm going to open up sites and services while that's promoting. If I had a DC here that needed to be moved to the east site, I can right-click it and move it to whatever site I need. So if you created your sites, if you set up your sites after promoting DC 3 and 4, you can manually move them. If I highlight servers, I can see that I only have one server on this site that's a global catalog. And eventually, we're going to have more servers over here. It's not done yet. I got to wait till it's done. I got to wait till DC3 is promoted. See how quickly that went? I don't have a lot of data in my Active Directory database, and so it just needed to copy over just a very little data. Now if I go to DC2, so that's good, it already replicated. So DC2 already knows about DC3. If I drill down into DC3, DC3 does not know who it's going to replicate with. If I go to child DC, I can see DC is going to replicate from DC3 will replicate from DC6 and DC1. DC1 will replicate from 2, 6, and 5. DC2 is going to replicate from DC1 and DC6. And DC6 will replicate from DC2 and DC5. I'm going to open up Notepad. KCC, remember that. You'll forget it. Students always do. Knowledge consistency checker. That is the process that's going to determine which domain controllers replicate to which domain controllers. That's called the replication topology. The KCC defines that. So I'm still waiting for DC3 to boot up. I'm going to pause the video while DC3 is booting. Okay, my domain controller is up and running. I'm ready to sign in, DC3. Now I'm going to go back to DC1. So the last thing we need to configure in sites and services for right now is something called a bridgehead server. As traffic flows from this site to this site, we don't know how our ISP controls that data. So we can't guarantee that that data is not going to be running on the same routers as data from other companies or individuals. So we need to encrypt that data. So when you want to replicate from one site to another site, you want that data to be encrypted. So the DC that handles that replication from one site to another site needs to have more memory and a better CPU. Also, I just mentioned that the KCC is responsible for creating that replication topology, deciding which domain controller replicates to which domain controller. You don't want to let the KCC define who replicates across the WAN link. So what we want to do is we want to define which domain controller does that. And we use something, we label a DC as a bridgehead server on both ends for each domain. So right now, the only domains that span multiple sites is contoso.com. So we want to define a bridgehead server for contoso.com on this side and a bridgehead server for contoso.com on this side. And all the domain controllers on this side will replicate to DC1. That's who we're going to say is a bridgehead server. and that machine will replicate data over to DC3. That will be the bridgehead server for the east site. And so all the DCs on this side will replicate to 3. 3 will replicate that data over to 1. 1 will replicate it to everyone over here. So not only is there a 15-minute replication delay, because that's what we've changed our site link to on this WAN link, there's also going to be a delay. If someone connects to DC4 and creates a user account, we have to wait till it gets replicated to DC3 before it'll get replicated across the WAN link to DC1, then eventually to DC2, and so on. So this site link adds a bit of a delay when creating objects in remote sites. So I'm going to go back to DC1. I'm going to highlight DC1, and I believe it's here. I'm going to right-click NTDS settings and go to properties. And that's not where it is. I'm going to highlight the server, right-click, and go to properties. This is what I want. So when we set up our sites, we set our inner site transport protocol is going to be IP. We're not using SMTP. So I want this machine to be the bridgehead server for the IP protocol. And it's saying, wait a second, it doesn't know about the child and the datum. So you're going to have to make the bridgehead servers for those domains. I'm not really concerned, I'm not really concerned with that because I don't have any DCs in the child or a datum domain over on the east site. So I'm only concerned about Contoso. If I had DCs in the child domain or the tree domain over on the east site, I would need to name bridgehead servers for those domains. Right now I don't have any. So I'm going to click OK. So now I'm going to go up to DC3. Right click the server, go to properties, and label that a bridgehead server. If you only label a bridgehead server on one side, at that point, you're really not doing anything because a bridgehead server is only going to be able to talk to a bridgehead server. And I did this relatively quickly after setting up parent DC3 because I don't want the KCC to kick in and start creating its own replication topologies. So right now, we still don't know who DC3 is replicating with. We're just waiting for the KCC to define that replication topology, taking into account who the bridgehead servers are. So if I highlight the server folder, I can see that parent DC1 is the bridgehead server for Contoso.com. If I go to the site, I can see parent DC3 is a bridgehead server for the Contoso.com domain. It's also a global catalog for the east site. I haven't gone over Operation Master roles. I'll talk more about global catalog and the Operation Master roles in another video. So while we're still waiting for the KCC to come up with the replication topology for DC3, I'm going to promote DC4. What I really should do is just walk away and let this figure it out. I'm not going to. I'm going to plow ahead. So the IP address for DC4 is 8.3. So I'm going to sign into DC. I'm already signed in, sorry. I'm going to go into the IP settings for DC4 and configure them. So I'm going to mask is /21. My router for the site is 172.16.8.1. Now when I promoted DC3, I'm jumping over to DC3, I pointed to DC2 and 1 for name resolution. And it left it at 2 and 1. So my DNS client still points to 2 and 1. DC2 and DC1. I'm going to go into DNS. If I look at forwarders, I'm pointing to my upstream forwarders, which is Google. If some client is using DC3 to resolve names, and DC3 can't resolve names for like www.google.com, there's no reason for DC3 to send it to DC1. Then DC1 is not going to know the answer. It's just going to send it out to the internet to get an answer. So if a client points to DC3 for name resolution and DC3 doesn't know the answer because it's not contoso.com, it's going to send it out directly to the internet. There's no reason for DC3 to send DNS traffic over the WAN link to DC1. DC1 sends it out to the internet. It's just costing me money. I don't want that DNS traffic going across the WAN link. So I'm going to go back to DNS. I'm going to go to conditional forwarders. So basically, if some client sends me a DNS request for anything ending in adatum.com, it's going to send it across the WAN link to adatum.com because that's the only DC that knows about adatum.com. I'm going to also go here. Child DC. Child.contoso.com. So because this is a child domain, I had to create a delegated domain. Because this is a tree domain, I had to create an additional conditional forwarder. Because my parent domain name is not included in this tree domain, but it is for the child domain. So if someone sends me a request to resolve something.child.contoso.com, I'm going to send that across the WAN link to this child DNS server. It's the only machine that knows about the child domain. So for contoso.com, it'll handle it on its own. For any name on the internet, it'll send it directly out to the internet. For any name in the child domain, it's going to send it across the WAN link to the child domain. For anything in the tree domain, it's going to send it across the WAN link to the tree domain. So the reason I brought that up is, who do I put here for the DNS? I'm just going to put DC3. There's no reason for DC4 to have to talk to DC1 or 2 to resolve names for Contoso during the promotion process. Anything that DC1 knows, DC3 knows. Anything that DC2 knows, DC3 knows. So I'm just going to point this DC to another domain controller for contoso.com in the same site, just to avoid sending traffic across that WAN link. 8.2, that is the IP address for DC3. So now I'm going to change the name and reboot. I'm going to pause the video while it's rebooting. Okay, it's rebooted. So now I'm going to sign in and install Active Directory Services. Manage, add roles and features. Do Active Directory domain services. Restart. We need to check restart so it boots up after I promote it. So I'm going to pause the video again while it's installing. Okay, so now I'm going to promote it. It's done installing. This is just going to be an additional domain controller in the Contoso domain. I don't need to supply the enterprise admin credentials because I'm not creating a new domain. I'm just creating a new domain controller for an existing domain. If I could type administrator. This happens to be the enterprise admin, but I'm really not using the enterprise admin authority. I'm just using the domain admin. If I was creating a new domain controller for the tree domain, I would need the tree domain admin. If I was creating a new domain, a new tree domain, or a new child domain, then I would need the enterprise admin credentials. And right now, I only have one enterprise admin. The admin account in the Contoso domain is the enterprise admin. Now, I only want 2 global catalog servers, one in this site and one in this site. Some people like to put global catalogs on all their DCs. My opinion is that just adds unwanted replication traffic, uses up bandwidth, costs you a lot of money over your WAN link. There's no reason to make that many. The one benefit of having global catalogs on all DCs is things tend to get replicated a little quicker. So it's really not worth it in my opinion. And you also create other issues which I haven't gone into yet. I'm going to talk about those in the next video. I'm going to put our recovery password in for this DC. I don't want a global catalog over here. I already have a global catalog on DC3. And that's fine for the E site. I'm not delegating anything. I'm just going to copy the zone data over from DC3. I'm going to replicate from any DC, but really, I might as well replicate from DC3. Why replicate across my WAN link? That might be a slower connection. WAN technology is slower than LAN technology. Inside your network is going to be quicker than your WAN link. Click Next. Just walk through the wizard. I'm going to pause the video while it's promoting. Okay, class, DC4 is booting up. I'm going to go to DC3. We'll look at sites and services. We'll look at the east site. DC3 sees DC4. DC4 is automatically going to replicate from DC1. DC4 doesn't know who it's going to replicate against yet. Now I want to see if DC3 and DC1 have the same information. I'm going to sign back into DC1. I'm going to highlight sites and refresh. So DC1 sees DC4. DC1 and DC3 know they're replicating with each other. DC4 has no replication partners yet. The KCC is still working. You notice that no other domain controller will replicate to DC3 other than DC1, because I've labeled DC1 and DC3 as bridgehead servers for the contoso.com domain. So I've controlled which DC can replicate across the WAN link. The only DCs that will replicate across this WAN link is DC1 and DC3. So guys, right now, I will let this sit and bake for a while. We want to make sure that all the DCs are fully replicated. So I'm going to end this video right now, and we're going to give it a little time. And the next video I create, which probably be toward the end of the week, will be to configure the operation master roles, or at least explain what's going on with it. And at that point, we'll move on to groups. So that's it for this video. Everyone stay safe.